know like they also fall right after, but I just want to make sure that.
the next Vice President and Second Lady of the United States, Senator JD Vance and Ursula Vance.
so great to be here. Michigan, in 41 days, we're going to turn this state around, and we're going to turn the country around. Now, I know we had some folks who couldn't quite get in. I think you can hear me, but not necessarily see me. I just want to say we're so grateful for everybody for being here. We're so grateful to have a max capacity and then some turnout, and we're grateful for all the hard work every single one of you is doing to turn this state red and send Donald Trump back to the White House. Now, I was on the phone with a friend earlier, and he asked me what I was doing. I said, well, we were in Florida at the time at a fundraising event. I said, we're going to come to Michigan. And he said, you're spending a lot of time in Michigan. And I said, yes, I am. I actually have come to love the state of Michigan. And he said, well, you went to Ohio State. Are you ever worried? Are you ever worried the Buckeye thing is going to cost you some votes in Michigan? I said, well, they did kick our ass 3 years in a row. The least they can do is vote for me. But I think we can all agree there's something much more important than football. There's something much more important than any sport. It's saving this country. And my friends, we have got a great team in the state of Michigan. I'm going to give a couple of shout outs here because we've got a great group that's going to help us turn this state red and win this election. I want to give a special shout out to Michigan GOP Chair Pete Hoekstra. Where's Pete at? And you guys have a great Senate candidate here in the state of Michigan. Mike Rogers isn't here, but let's give a round of applause for Mike Rogers. Now, I don't know if you saw the news, but Kamala Harris has decided to give her first solo national interview. Number one. Now, the journalist that she's doing this interview with, of course, is a person who's already endorsed Kamala Harris. I don't think she's going to get that many tough questions. But, I've watched a couple of these interviews with local journalists with Kamala Harris, and I've realized why it is that Kamala Harris does good interviews. And the answer is that every time she answers a question, I think we gain about 100,000 votes. Donald Trump. If you want to lose about 20 IQ points, I'd encourage you to watch one of her interviews for about 5 minutes. And, they'll ask Kamala, of course, because she's the vice president, and she is the reason why we have sky-high inflation and a wide-open border. They'll say, Kamala, Vice President Harris, what are you going to do? What is your specific plan to solve the inflation crisis that's making it unaffordable to buy groceries and housing? And Kamala will say, well, did you know that I grew up in a middle-class family? I had a very nice lawn back there in Berkeley, California. He's like, well, that might be true. What the hell does that have to do with lowering inflation? But they'll say, Kamala Harris, the world, we've got a war in every new continent across the country. Kamala Harris, your administration has in some ways led to the policies that caused this conflict. How are you going to solve it as President of the United States? And Kamala Harris will say, well, did you know that I worked at McDonald's for about 3 months while I was a teenager? And I think, my friends, that all of us are watching this interview and saying to ourselves, what is Kamala Harris, what is she actually planning to do for the American people? And the answer is, we don't have to guess that much because she's been the vice president for 3.5 years and she hasn't done a damn thing. So let's dispense with this idea that Kamala Harris is going to fix the very problem she caused. Kamala Harris is why we have sky-high inflation. Kamala Harris is why you can't afford groceries or housing. Kamala Harris is why the world is at war right now in nearly every single continent. Kamala Harris is why the border is wide open. And Kamala Harris, you want a promotion, but the message from Michigan is you're fired. Go back to because I think it gets to the the heart of what this election is fundamentally about, and I ask it to everybody, not just who's here, but is watching us on TV or is watching us in some of the clips they'll see of this event. And it's actually very, very simple. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And actually, it's not just you all, it's a lot of Americans. In fact, about 70% of Americans are consistently telling us that their financial position is worse thanks to the policies of Kamala Harris. Now let's just tick through some of the problems here. The cost of living in the state of Michigan is $1,032 higher per month than it was 3.5 years ago when Donald Trump left office. That's a disgrace. That means that if you add up all this inflation, the average Michigan family has been cost $27,000 thanks to Kamala Harris's inflation. Gas prices in this state are up 45%. Home prices in the state of Michigan are up 41%, meaning that a lot of American families can no longer afford the American dream of homeownership. Now, groceries are up over 20%, and that's everything. That's milk is about $4 a gallon. That's about a 20% increase. Eggs are up more than 115%. That means they've more than doubled in price, thanks to Kamala Harris. And I've got 3 little kids at home who eat a lot of eggs, so I've seen that price increase very personally. But here's the problem with Kamala Harris. It's not just that she caused all these problems, it's that she's the most shameless politician I think we've ever seen in our lifetimes, because you go to a Kamala Harris rally, which I would not recommend, and she will say without an ounce of shame, on day one, we're going to lower grocery prices. Or on day one, we're going to make housing more affordable. Kamala, day one was 1,400 days ago. What the hell have you been doing all the time? Now, the answer, unfortunately, is she hasn't been doing a lot, or in fact, when she has been doing anything, it's been making the problems worse. Kamala Harris, as much as she tries to run for the policies of the past 3.5 years, as much as she tries to pretend that she represents change, Kamala Harris, let's remember, she cast the tie-breaking vote on over $4 trillion of spending that sent inflation through the roof. Kamala Harris wants to increase your taxes, in a lot of ways already has increased your taxes, so that she can help rich people buy automobiles made in China. Does that make an ounce of sense? Does that help Michigan auto workers, some of the proudest auto workers in the entire world? So when Kamala Harris says that she has a plan, you better run for the hills, because her record for the past 3.5 years has been a disaster for this state and for the entire country. So here's what I think we should do. Rather than give Kamala Harris a promotion that she hasn't earned, rather than give her a promotion even though she refuses to give an interview, let's send her back to San Francisco where she belongs and make Donald J. Trump. Now, one of the many reasons I love to be in Michigan is you guys have a very proud agricultural tradition. And you know, you all, I assume, know this, 75%, I learned this today, 75% of the tart cherries are grown in the great state of Michigan. Now, I'm grateful, of course, to have all of you here. The person I'm most grateful to have here is my lovely wife, Usha. Honey, thank you for being here. Thank you. And Usha will tell you that I'm actually the baker in the family. You surprised that? Surprised by that? So I actually make a lot of cherry pie for those 300 kids, and apparently they all come from the state of Michigan. So from my children to you all, thank you all. But you know right now that Michigan farmers are struggling more than they have in a generation, because a lot of countries are dumping agricultural products into our country. And you know, we've seen this story before in the state of Michigan and all over the Midwest, where you have people using literal slave labor, making things as cheaply as possible, dumping it into our country to undercut the wages of American workers and put a lot of great American people out of their jobs. Now, we've got a president and a vice president right now that is saying, Do it, and do it more. She's welcoming these agricultural and manufactured theft by allowing people to flood this market with a bunch of stuff that shouldn't be here to begin with. Now here's Donald Trump's approach. Donald Trump's approach is we are going to protect Michigan auto workers, we're going to protect Michigan farmers, and we're going to be self-reliant as a people. Common sense tax and economic policies that make it easier to build things in America, make things in America, and do it with American workers instead of foreign slave laborers. The story, my friends, the story of the economy over the past 40 years, and Kamala Harris and her donors have benefited from more than almost anybody, is very simple. We're going to ship American jobs overseas. They say we want to ship American manufacturing overseas, and Donald Trump is the first person in a generation that has said, hell no, we're protecting American workers and protecting American jobs. Now you see the same old failed approach with this Goshen facility, right? Let's let a lot of foreign money build things instead of doing it with American money and American workers. But you see it in a lot of other ways too. The most destructive thing that this administration has done, the Kamala Harris administration, is that she wants to force Americans to buy electric vehicles made in China. And she, by the way, wants to subsidize doing it with your money. Here's what our proposal is. First of all, this is America, so you should be able to drive whatever the hell car you want to. Because we in the United States of America. But here's the second thing. We are going to support American industry and American energy. And people always ask Kamala Harris this question when they get a rare opportunity to ask her question and say, what's your specific plan for lowering costs for American consumers? And they asked Donald Trump the same question. It's funny, Kamala Harris has no answer to that question, but Donald Trump does. You know what the most important thing we're going to do to lower costs and make it easy for American manufacturers to build in the United States of America? Drill, baby, drill. Because here's the thing, when you make it more expensive on energy workers and energy producers, well, then gas gets more expensive. And if the truck drivers are paying more for gas, then we're paying more for the groceries that are delivered by the truck drivers to the grocery store. We're paying more for homes because the truck drivers are delivering the lumber and the construction supplies to that build site. And on issue after issue after issue, all we got to do is unshackle the American energy worker and the American energy producer. Do it more in the United States of America, do it with American workers, and that's how you lower prices. Now here's another thing that Donald Trump, he doesn't get a lot of credit from the American media, and certainly not from the Democrats, but you know, Donald Trump is actually a great president for environmental protection and conservation. Doesn't get nearly enough credit. Of course, we believe in protecting our environment. We believe in clean air and clean water because in the state of Michigan, especially this far north, we've got some of the most beautiful natural resources anywhere in the world. We're proud of it, and we want to conserve it. So you know, President Trump signed the Great American Outdoors Act to rebuild our national parks, spent $900 million rebuilding our national parks. And he signed another piece of legislation that put $175 million into Great Lakes restoration, which of course benefits all of us. Benefits all of us who depend on the Great Lakes. That's Ohio, that's Pennsylvania, that's Michigan, and that's Wisconsin. Look, we believe in the United States of America, and we believe in the conservative movement, in clean air, in clean water, and in a beautiful planet. And here's the problem. Is Kamala Harris, in the name of crazy green energy scams, is shipping American manufacturing jobs to China, which, by the way, is the dirtiest economy in the entire world. So here's what we ought to do if we want to protect the American worker, but also protect the American environment, build more in the United States of America, and do it with American workers. And that's our plan, and that's exactly what we're going to do. And I don't think we can say it enough, my friends, that Kamala Harris, just one final point here, is Kamala Harris's policies lead to higher taxes for the middle class. She's explicitly promising to raise taxes on middle-class Americans, even while she's using that money to reward companies that are shipping jobs overseas. And I think she's got it exactly opposite. So here's the Donald Trump tax plan. We're going to cut taxes on American workers, and we're going to penalize companies that are shipping jobs overseas. My story, and a lot of you know where I came from. Look, I grew up in a working class family. And so, but look, when Kamala Harris talks about her middle class background, when the Democrats talk about how they stand for working people, they're not telling the truth. They're lying to you. And here's how we know they're lying to you. You remember back a few years ago when there were a lot of nurses, a lot of people in a lot of industries that were losing their jobs because they refused to take the COVID shot? Now, I believe if you want to take the COVID shot, take the shot. If you don't want to take the COVID shot, don't take the COVID shot. But listen. Disgraceful for Kamala Harris to say that she stands for the American working man when she fired millions of American working men and women from their jobs for not doing what Kamala Harris would tell them to. When she shipped millions of American jobs to foreign countries in the name of the environment, even though those foreign countries do business a lot dirtier than we do. It's a scandal for her to say that she stands for the American working man when she is promising to raise taxes on working men and women all over this country, including in the state of Michigan. The president for working people in the United States of America, it's Donald J. Trump, and we're going to fight to get it back. Let's just talk about the human cost of her policies, and then we're going to take some questions from the media. But I want to talk about one more issue, and that's immigration. Because, man, what a nightmare the American southern border is thanks to Kamala Harris's policies. Now, you see this in small towns and big cities all across our country. What are the tolls of Kamala Harris's broken border? Kamala Harris opened the border. Remember, she promised us. She said on day one, I'm going to suspend deportations, and that's exactly what she did, and now American citizens are living with the consequences. We see this in towns like Springfield, we see it in PA, we see it in Michigan, we see it all across our country. What you see is municipal budgets that get stressed, police officers that can't do their job because they're dealing with illegal aliens. You see students that can't learn in their schools because they're flooded with children who don't even speak English. You see car accidents going up because a lot of people aren't properly licensed to drive. And you, of course, see a massive increase in crime. And you know what else you see? And this goes to the heart of why housing prices are so high, is you see a lot of people who cannot afford the cost of a house. Because when you allow foreign people who are in this country illegally to buy houses and all by right to go to Americans, then you make it impossible for American citizens to afford the American dream of homeownership. So here's what we believe is we need common sense tax and economic policy. We need to bring back some good American manufacturing jobs to the state of Michigan. But if we want to allow American citizens to afford a home again, we've got to start by deporting the millions of illegal aliens in Kamala Harris. When you let a bunch of people who shouldn't be in this country come here illegally. You put stresses on all the services that a lot of Americans rely on every single day. And I'm proud to run with an American president and an American presidential candidate who believes the first duty of the American president is to look out for American citizens first, and that's what we're going to do. Questions to the reporters. So it's hard to believe, but it's been 10 days since another assassin tried to take the life of President Trump. And thank God for a quick acting Secret Service agent, and thank God for his grace, because I believe in the same God, not just one. You know, but I had this conversation, and I had this conversation with the president about 1:45 on Sunday, the day that he was shot. He called me. I was home with my 7-year-old son in Cincinnati, and he said, JD, they just tried to do it again. I said, they tried to do what again? They said, well, they tried to shoot me. And I couldn't believe it. And I said, my God, sir, first of all, how are you? You know, not just how are you physically, but, you know, that's a traumatic thing to happen twice in as many months. How are you doing? And honestly, I was more shook up about it than he was. And it revealed something to me about Donald Trump's character that I want to talk about. Because we can disagree on substantive issues. I think in this room we largely agree. But the most important thing is not that we agree on 100% of the issues. It's that we have a person of character and courage under fire in the Oval Office. Now, here's the thing. So I said, sir, how are you? And he said, well, I'm doing fine. I'm kind of pissed off because I was about to make a birdie on the 6th hole. And yeah, you know, I chuckled, and it's good that he could show some humor in a tough moment, but then I realized that there's actually something insightful going on there about Donald Trump the man. Because we know that at some point, probably many points in the next 4 years, there's going to be some crisis somewhere in the world. And it's going to become the American president's business, because everything that happens eventually falls on the desk of the United States president. And who do we want answering that phone call, my friends? That's exactly right. Is it a woman who is so afraid of the American media, the friendly media, that she won't even do an interview? Or is it the person who takes a literal bullet to the brain and stands up in defiance and stands up and says, fight, fight, fight? Almost took a bullet to the brain, took a bullet to the head, and stood up and said, fight, fight, fight. I really do think when you watch that video and his head turns so quickly, that is the grace of God. It really is an amazing thing. But look, it's not just an amazing thing, it's the response to it. Because when you show that level of calmness and coolness under pressure, what you show is that you can handle the adversity and the stress and the trauma of being in a tough situation and fighting for the American people despite it. And here's the problem with Kamala Harris. It's not just that she's wrong on the issues, my friends. It's that she doesn't have a plan. She can't even talk about her plan, and she's so terrified of the American people that she runs from the media instead of answering their questions. That is not a person we want anywhere near the Oval Office. We want Donald J. Trump, and that's exactly what we're going to fight. So, thank you. And I want to just say that this is ultimately what this election is about. Is what kind of person do you want in the Oval Office when times are tough? Who do you want responding to a world crisis? Who do you want implementing common sense economic policies that he already implemented once? And the answer is Donald J. Trump, the people's president, and we got to get him elected. Thank you. Thank you. Now, we'll take a few questions from the media, and and then we'll have to hit the road. But I can't, unfortunately, the lights are a little bright, so I can't see you. But if you got a microphone, just shout out a question.
Hey, Senator. You came here to talk about the auto industry in Michigan. What do you see as Michigan's role in the future of the industry, whether that is predominantly gas or electric?
Well, look, I think Michigan's role in the industry is going to be the leader of the American auto industry, because it always has been, but only if we get leadership that's going to fight for Michigan auto workers instead of a person who fights to ship their jobs to China. And I think that's the most important thing. Look, we're going to have EVs. And this is the thing. Donald Trump and I are not anti-electric vehicle. We're anti-telling Americans what car they have to get. But here's what's so crazy about Kamala Harris's EV policies is, on the one hand, she's taxing Americans to send a lot of their money to foreign-made electric vehicles, while on the other hand, she refuses to allow America to dominate not just the manufacture of the electric vehicles, but everything that comes before it. The mining of the minerals, the manufacture of the batteries. They have made making things in the United States practically illegal, and so when they subsidize electric vehicles, they are necessarily subsidizing electric vehicles that are primarily made in China. So here's what Donald Trump and I believe. Number one, let's unshackle the industry and stop these crazy regulations that make it impossible to build things and make things in the United States of America. And number two, let's invest in Michigan and American auto workers and the products they're building. And we do that. And I really believe you're going to unleash a renaissance in manufacturing in this country, and it's going to start right here in the great state of Michigan, because you all know how to make things with your hands. We're proud of that, but we want to keep it going and build upon it. So I think Michigan's role is going to be leading this industry, but only if we stop the stupid policies of Kamala Harris and get Donald Trump back to the White House. Next question.
Senator Vance, Senator Vance, this is Peter Coates with Traverse City Record. Eagle, our hometown newspaper. That's okay, we're used to it.
We're having fun. You're allowed to ask your question. They're allowed to tell you how they think about it, right?
So,
it's okay. This is America.
We have a very serious shortage of affordable housing in this.
Yes, we do.
Not just Grand Traverse County, but all over northern Michigan. Families with their kids can't stay here because they can't afford to buy a house. We can't get service workers up here because the rental is too expensive. Homes that 10 years ago cost $100,000 are selling for $800,000. What can those people do now to address this problem, and how will you help them?
Let me just say, one, I appreciate and I agree with the basic premise of the question, which is housing is way too expensive in this area and all over the country. And this is something that has really changed from even when I was a little kid. And look, I did not grow up in a family with a lot of money. I think a lot of you know that. A lot of you have heard my story. But look, a lot of American middle class and working class people could afford to buy a home. I remember my family actually said something to me very recently. It was really sad. It kind of hit me how just unbelievably sad it is for American young people. You know, she was talking about buying a home herself, and she said, isn't it kind of crazy that when our parents were young, they could just go and work a job and raise a family and afford to buy a home? And I thought to myself, what a terrible job we're doing for our young people. They feel like they cannot access the American dream of homeownership. But look, the answer is most immediately, it goes back to the border. And why does it go back to the border? Because every economist and every person with an ounce of common sense will tell you that if you bring in millions upon millions of people who are competing with Americans for scarce homes, it's going to shoot the price of housing through the roof. So the first thing that you've got to do to make it more affordable to buy a home in this country is to get people who shouldn't be here out of the country and force them. Also got to build a lot of houses. And we unfortunately have made it so hard on construction workers workers and construction businesses to build housing in the United States of America. When we talk about regulations, I think a lot of people say, well, what do you really mean about regulations? Well, here are the two things that I'm really focused on when I criticize the regulatory regime of Kamala Harris. It's number one, they're shutting down pipelines, they're shutting down oil fields, they're shutting down natural gas rigs, they're shutting down the American energy sector. That's a disaster. You're going to stop the regulations there. And by the way, that will also lower the cost of housing, because one of the reasons housing is so expensive is because the energy to build the homes has gotten so expensive thanks to Kamala Harris. But the second thing you got to do is stop making it so hard to build things. Let's think about this country. Think about the history of the United States of America. You think about, what is it that really sets us apart? We are frontiersmen. We tamed the wilderness over hundreds of years and built incredible skyscrapers and great, beautiful buildings. We are a country of builders and of makers, and Kamala Harris is trying to throw you in jail if you build without her permission. It's a joke, and we've just got to get back to making it easier for people to build things in this country that'll drive down the cost of housing and make American homeownership affordable again. Next question.
Yes. Hello and welcome to Traverse City. We're glad to
Thank
have
you.
you
It's
here.
good to be here.
I'm Jennifer Isbell with Michigan News Source, and my question is, what are you doing to prepare for the upcoming difficult debate against your opponent?
Well, look, I think the way I see the debate is very simple. It's an opportunity where for 90 minutes, Governor Walz and I are going to debate the issues that matter to the American people. And what I'm going to try to show is very simple, that the candidacy, the team of substance, the team that actually has a record that we're proud of instead of we're running away from, and the team that actually has a plan is the team of Trump Vance. And that's what I'm going to try to do. I think one of the fundamental differences between Kamala Harris's campaign and Donald Trump's campaign is we speak to our fellow Americans like they're citizens, because they are. Kamala Harris speaks to her fellow Americans like they're children. And so what I'm just going to try to talk about here is explicitly what we're going to do to make your life better, and here are the ways in which the current administration has made your life worse. So we're going to try to connect it to public policy, because that's what I think the American people care about. So that's my plan. So we're studying up as much as we can on the issues that matter to the American people, and I'm looking forward to it, because again, as much as the moderators may very well be biased, we'll see about that. I know they were the first time, but it's an opportunity for me to get to tell the American people how I think we can make their lives better, and how Donald Trump's policies can make them more prosperous, can make the world more peaceful, and can secure that southern border. If we do those things, we're going to win, and I believe we will. Next question. We'll just do a couple more here.
Okay. Welcome back to Michigan, Senator.
Thank you.
I have a question about foreign policy. You recently detailed a plan that would end the Ukrainian war in a podcast that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called too radical. I want to give you the floor to respond to that. How do you respond to what Zelensky said, and can you detail how a Trump-Vance administration would end the war in Ukraine?
Well, look, the details for how Donald Trump is going to end the war in Ukraine is by not being weak and not being dumb, which is unfortunately something you can't say for the current administration. Russia didn't invade a single one of their neighbors for the 4 years that Donald Trump was president, and the president before him and the president after him, somehow Russia keeps on invading their neighbors. It's because they don't respect American leadership, and because our leaders aren't smart. So what Donald Trump brings back is not just strength, but intelligence to the Oval Office, and I think that's really all you need to end this war, because look, it is not in America's interest, it's not in Ukraine's interest, it's not in Europe's interest for this war to go on indefinitely. Now, you said that Zelensky criticized something I said. First of all, that's not a plan. That's me talking about one possible scenario for how this thing might ultimately end. But look, I don't appreciate Zelensky coming to this country and telling the American taxpayers what they ought to do. He ought to say thank you. What they promised was a return to normalcy. And think about this. Think about, we've got a conflict right now, a war that would have never happened in the Middle East that threatens to become a regional war. We've got a war in Europe that wasn't happening under Donald Trump's leadership. We've got the threat of war about to break out in East Asia between China and Taiwan. The entire world is a tinderbox, and Kamala Harris, I really believe, is the match. Because weakness invites conflict. Donald Trump believes in peace through strength and peace through smart diplomacy, and that's what he's going to go after. Let's do one more question because we're having some fun, and then I'll leave you with some final words, and then we'll have to get out of here.
Thank you for doing this, Senator.
He's back there. Go
Thank you
ahead.
for doing this, Senator. My question for you is, Trump says it's too late to debate because voting has already started and it's bad for America. You're set to debate walls on Tuesday. Does that mean your debate is bad for America?
Well, first of all, the president already did a debate, and I thought he did a hell of a job. How did you guys think? It's so funny. All these pundits after the debate, you turn on the TV, which again I don't recommend watching CNN, but if you do, they turn on the TV and they say, well, clearly she got some good shots in, blah 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 blah, and then you listen to the undecided voters who watch the debate, and it's like the majority of them are voting for Donald Trump afterwards. Well, if the majority of undecided voters are voting for one guy, I'd say that guy won the debate. And here's the thing. This is why Kamala Harris is desperate to do this again, because she knows that she's losing. And when you're running a losing campaign, you throw everything against the wall, and that's exactly what Kamala Harris is doing. Now, we have to remember that months ago, Donald Trump offered multiple debates, and the Democrats said no. The Democrats said no, we don't want to do all these debates. And now that they're losing, they want to change the deal. Well, too bad. You should have made that decision 3 months ago, not now that you're running a losing campaign. Well, look, I think the more important point here, the more important point for the American people is Donald Trump is getting out there every single day. I'm getting out there every single day, and we're doing what a president and vice president ought to do. We're trying to earn the trust and the vote of the American people. I think the American media ought to be much more interested in why Kamala Harris is running from every single interview when Donald Trump is getting out there and he's talking to the American people every single opportunity that he gets. And I think the president has figured out that the best way to get out there and reach the American people is to do it directly, to do what we're doing here, to talk to you guys directly, because putting this filter and putting a teleprompter between you and the American people, that's how Kamala Harris is going to run her campaign. Donald Trump is going to run his campaign on ideas. He's going to run his campaign on making this country great again because he already did it once, and he's going to do it again if the American people. So I want to leave you with just a couple of thoughts here because look, it's so much fun to be here, and I've loved spending some time with you, but we've also got some work to do. And the president does this at every rally, and I think it's such an important message, and I'm going to try to impart it to you all. We've got to get out there and work. And I got a very specific request for you. It's that I want you to get out there, and I want you to vote 10 times. Now, the headline on CNN tomorrow will be Senator Vance encourages voter fraud in Michigan. But here's how you get out there and vote legally 10 times, is you take yourself to the polls and you get 9 of your friends and family to go along with it. Now, one thing, let me just give you a little bit of the nitty-gritty on politics, is when we think about how we're going to win this race, it really is simple. We just need to get our people who already plan to vote for us, we need to make sure they actually get out there and vote. But here's the thing. things sometimes come up if you wait until election day. And look, I'm a firm believer that we ought to have election day instead of election season, but it is what it is, my friends. We've got election season, it is here, at least for now, and so we've got to play by the rules and we've got to play to win. So here, you talk to 100 Democrats, you talk to 100 Republicans, let's just say you talk to, we're getting a lot of Democrats too. Say you talk to 100 people who plan to vote for Trump and 100 people who plan to vote for the other guy. 98 or 99 of the other guy's people will show up, whereas for us, sometimes it'll be 95, 96. Now, in a close election, that is the difference between Donald Trump being the president or Kamala Harris being the president. And so we got to figure out how to get every single person that plans to vote for our side to get out there and vote. Now, we all know what happens if you wait till election day. Some people, I've heard stories of, well, I plan to vote on election day, but then the school nurse called, my kid threw up at school, and I had to go pick him up and take him to the doctor. Or something came up with my mom and I had to go help her. Maybe I planned to go to the polls right around 6:30, but I had to stay at work until 8 o'clock and didn't get a chance to make it there before things closed. The way that we're going to win this election is to bank every single vote. So don't just get out there and vote. Get out there and vote as soon as you possibly can. And there's a website. I want to read off it just because I want to screw this website up. swampthevote.com. You can check your registration, you can check where your polling location is, and you can get involved in our grassroots effort to elect Donald Trump the next president of the United States. Because here's the thing that I think that the media always misses this about the Donald Trump movement and everything that we're trying to do. Is, look, we are very, very frustrated by the leadership of this country. But every single person in this room is a patriot. We love the United States of America, and we think it's the greatest country in the entire world. But here's the thing, we've got, and I wish I could take every single one of you and give you the perspective that I've gotten running for vice president the last 7 weeks. It's, other than marrying this beautiful woman here and being a father to our 3 kids, the greatest honor of my life has been to run to be your next vice president of the United States. It's an unbelievable honor. Look, I've been look at the 7 battleground states: Arizona, Nevada, North Carolina, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and of course Wisconsin. And I've been to these 7 states so many times, and all I can think about when I go to a new place or a place, I've never been to Traverse City, this area before, and you come and all you can think is, this is the most beautiful country in the history of the world. I really do believe in this. We have got the best natural resources anywhere in the world. I mean, oil and gas and minerals that Russians and Chinese would literally kill for, we've got right here in our own country. Speaking of natural resources, the best natural resource of all is our people. And I believe we've got the best people anywhere in the world. The only thing I think that is broken about the United States of America is our failed leadership. The only thing that's broken about the United States of America is that Kamala Harris is calling the shots. And you know how we're going to change that? It's not by relying on the press. It's not by relying on anybody but ourselves. So let's get out there, let's work our tail ends off, and let's make Donald Trump the next president of the United States.